Greetings and welcome to week 14. This week we're moving away from the humanitarian issues of the Millennium Development Goals and turning our focus to security issues. Specifically in week 14 we are going to look at the issue of nuclear proliferation. Since 1945, nuclear weapons have been a reality for our world, and from the 1950s through the end of the 1980s and into the 1990s, the Soviet Union and the United States amassed huge stockpiles of nuclear weapons, enough to destroy the world thousands of times over. And those two giants stared at each other across a line in Germany, and always they backed down from any confrontation because of the threat of nuclear annihilation, really, for both sides. Other states have nuclear capabilities, but those were the two that dominated the scene. And still to this day, the United States and Russia have over 95% of all the nuclear weapons in the world. The issue now that the Cold War has ended, the fear that leads to what may be the preeminent security concern of our time, is that more and more states that are or could be seen as unstable are acquiring nuclear weapons, attempting to acquire them, or are in the opening stages of the process, the end of which will lead to providing the capabilities to these states to destroy on an enormous scale. Other than the Soviet Union and the United States, you have the United Kingdom, France, and China, who have had nuclear weapons since the latest was China in 1964. So for 40 years, those were the countries that really dominated. India tested a weapon in 1974 and then again in 1998, and then once India tested again in 1998, Pakistan tested. So that brought the total to 7. And then in 2006, North Korea tested a nuclear device as well. So at this point, you have 8 countries that officially have nuclear weapons. The worst kept secret in all of international relations and international affairs maybe is that Israel has nuclear weapons. They've never admitted it. The official policy doesn't really deny it, but it's understood as certain that they do have that capability. So now you have a country like Iran that is growing, that wants to acquire nuclear power, they say for peaceful purposes. Maybe that's so. But many believe that once they acquire the ability to harness nuclear energy, that the next step is weaponization. So the fear is that states like Iran will get a nuclear device, and then other states in the region, in order to balance that capability, will get nuclear weapons, and there will be a nuclear arms race in different regions of the world. So that is a fear. The biggest fear, though, is that with the acquisition of more and more nuclear weapons in more and more states, that the possibility of those weapons slipping into the hands of international terrorists or international crime organizations becomes much greater. And so the threat used to be 2 states looking at each other and blowing really their entire civilizations to pieces in a major nuclear confrontation. But that's not the fear so much anymore. And as you'll see, Russia and the United States are taking steps, and there are varying degrees of satisfaction with the steps that have been taken, but are taking steps to limit the number of nuclear weapons that they have. So the fear of all-out nuclear war between the superpowers is fading. But the fear that is rising is the one of nuclear terrorism, and of a group such as Al-Qaeda getting the ability to to acquire a nuclear weapon in some sort and then use it for their terrorist activities. So the focus of the week is the rise of the nuclear weapon and the spread of the capability to weaponize nuclear power in the 21st century. So that is our content focus. Going hand in hand with that is our current affair topic, which is the resurgence of Russia. And Russia, after the Cold War, the Soviet Union disintegrated and Russia was seen as a second-class power. It was internally, politically very weak and economically very weak, and it really, really had fallen off the pedestal that it was on during the Cold War. But now, in the past 5 years or so, there has been a resurgence. And Russia now is, after recoiling and retracting its reach and its power for many years, now is starting to expand and starting to try to influence the near abroad, we'll say, the countries that are close to the Soviet Union. And it's throwing its weight around in the international system in general, to a larger extent. And so how that resurgence of Moscow is dealt with is an interesting question in international relations, and it's one that we'll focus on this week. So, content: the threat of nuclear proliferation. The current affair is Russia and the resurgence of Russia. And then the geography that we'll look at this week is very, very simple. It's East Asia. I think that you have 5 countries that you'll deal with, maybe 6. You have China and North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Mongolia. It's an easy way to end your geography study that we've been working on for the past 13 weeks. We are near the end of the road. We have this week where we'll deal with nuclear proliferation. We have next week where we'll deal with terrorism, and then we'll wrap up in week 16 with a study of human rights and what the human rights means and how that fits in with all of the different aspects of international relations we've been discussing over the course of this semester. So we are near the end, but we're not there yet. So keep working hard. There's still a lot of good stuff to learn. I appreciate the effort that you are giving, and I hope you are still finding the course to be worthwhile. Have a good week, and I will look forward to seeing you online. Take care.